Hello and welcome to our new podcast, Breakfast Clubbing with the Boys. I'm Kyle Nicholson. He is Brody Green. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in and listening. Brody and I we've talked about this for some time, and we're really excited to get this thing off the ground. Our goal with this is to highlight Texas A&M athletics, the SEC. Sprinkle in some Major League Baseball and NFL and current events. Like any other podcast, our goal is to use this as an outlet to share our opinions and experiences as former players of Texas A&M. Take you, the listener, inside the locker room, in the dugout, and on the field. We are here to say whatever we want, which could be dangerous, but overall, we just want to be authentic. Brody, why don't you tell the folks kind of how the backstory on how we came up with the name of the podcast?
Yeah, so we had long talks on names and which route we should go, maybe kind of play off of current podcasts, whatever it was. And I threw out there breakfast clubbing. Kind of goes back to our time at school under Coach Childress. If you missed weights, if you were missing class, or if you weren't sitting in the first three rows, or in your case, if you missed tubes and weights, you got served a breakfast club where I can't remember if it was any time of the week or certain days of the week where you have to be at the field at 5 o'clock, and kind of dealer's choice on your punishment. But you could probably speak to that a lot more. But yeah, that's kind of what we pulled off. That play on the Breakfast Club, and here we are. So if you want to explain what a Breakfast Club is, I personally never had to deal with one of those because I was one of those guys that was always on time, didn't miss much. But you kind of can speak to that more than I could.
Yeah, I guess I won't divulge too much into why I had a breakfast club. I'll say it was probably one of the more minor offenses and could have Coach Childress could have simply let it go, but we know that man would never do that. But yeah, it was. But the Breakfast Club was something you wanted to avoid at all costs because I believe you had to be there around 4:30 in the morning. I remember this. Number one is as a player and having to go through the Breakfast Club, but also when I was the grad assistant in 2011 and 12, I was the one who had to run the Breakfast Club. So I got both sides of the coin on that, but again, it was something that you didn't want to do, and it was essentially some sort of brutal conditioning and mental toughness exercises, we'll say, for about an hour, or really until someone threw up. If someone threw up, it kind of almost made it. You knew you were closer to the end. But yeah, man. So Breakfast Clubbing with the Boys. Before we dive into kind of our topics for today, Brody, why don't you lead us off in introducing yourself? I know it's probably been a while for me, 17 years since I've been a player at A&M, but a little bit less. I was there as a grad assistant. But why don't you remind everyone who you are, what years you were at Texas A&M, what did you do after leaving? And tell our listeners, are you married? Do you have kids? Where are you living? And kind of what are you doing now?
Yeah, so 2007 to 10, kind of bounced around the field in my time there. After the 2010 season, the Reds scooped me up in the fourth round and got an opportunity to play some pro ball. Figured out real quick that you got to hit every single pitch guys are throwing to keep advancing, and it just didn't work out. After getting out of there, started the family, 2 girls, 7 and 3, absolute handfuls. We've moved recently to Liberty Hill, just northwest of that town, just south of Liberty Hill, but in the hill country, working at a company called Fusion Brands, who just made the Aggie 100 list last year. Buddy I grew up with in East Texas, started this company. We've kind of gone in, doing promotional products, hats, shirts, laser. We kind of do it all. Anything you want to put a logo on, that's what we do. So that's where we're at now, man. Not too far from College Station, so give back a ton. We've got friends still living there that we played with, and they're open, to us coming in unannounced at any time. So it's definitely a good spot to be. Um, but yeah, we're excited to be over here and definitely excited for what's to come.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, so to kind of piggyback off Brody, my name's Kyle Nicholson. So I actually grew up in College Station, Texas. Shout out Rock Prairie Elementary School. Uh, Graduated from A&M Consolidated in 2003, and then I went to Texas A&M and played baseball from '04 to '07. So, like Brody, after finishing my career at A&M, I was drafted in the seventh round by the San Francisco Giants. I played in the organization until roughly 2011. Um, really just hung it up due to injury. Had three arm surgeries within about 4 years. Come back to Texas A&M in 2011. Um, was the grad assistant for the team in 2011 and 12. 2011, we went to the College World Series. I had a great group of kids that year. In 2012, I left College Station for good and moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I married my wife, Megan. We have four kids. We're still living just south of the city up here in you call it the hill country in Austin, man. I don't. This must be the mountain country because there's just hills everywhere up here. It ain't flat roads where you can see your dog run away for 5 days. But so anyway, yeah, I spent a lot of time outside of the game. I worked in the oil and gas industry for quite some time now. But in 2019, I returned into coaching with a local high school team, Bethel Park. It's the community we live in. Our season in 2020 was canceled due to COVID, but in 2021 we had a season and we won the Pennsylvania State Championship, which was a pretty cool experience for the school and the boys. And then after that season, I was offered an opportunity to go to IUP, which is Indiana University of Pennsylvania. The university is about an hour east of Pittsburgh. So for the last 3 years, I've been an assistant focused on the pitching side of things for IUP. And our first year here, we kind of uh, we over we took over a team that won two games in 2021. They had a total record of 2-35, and we set an NCAA record our first year for turnaround wins in a year. We went from 2 wins to 27, and then this past year, our third year, we made a run into the NCAA tournament, which was the first time since 1990 that IUP was able to do that. We won our regional, we won a super regional, and made it to the Division II College World Series, which is held at the United States training complex there in Cary, North Carolina. So we ended up losing to defending national champion Angelo State in the semifinals. We were really close. But it was a great experience for me as a coach and obviously the players as well. So yeah, that in a nutshell, that's kind of where I'm at and what I'm doing now. So I have a full-time job that supports a family, but it's keeping my competitive spirits flowing and still coaching.
I bet that, coaching with Steve Klein, who coached you with the Giants, right, in the organization,
That's
kind
right.
of that relationship. I mean, that's probably makes it a lot easier to get up and do your everyday job and do coaching at the same time.
Yeah, Steve gives me a lot of leeway as far as that goes, which is nice, but Division II baseball doesn't pay like Division I, so unfortunately I have to hold a full time job in order to make it work. But the schedule itself is tough, but in the end, it's I don't know, it's worth it. It's worth it. So, but anyway, man, before we get into what we have on the docket for today. We're gonna start each podcast with really kind of our current events, and we're gonna call it the What's Cooking. It's gonna be the What's Cooking segment, brought to you by. Oh Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it. Shout out to Harry Doyle from Major League. Brody and I have always
That'd
been
be a hell of
a
a clip to insert there.
Dude, we've been movie quoters for a long time, so that'll probably be the first of many movie quotes on our show. So what's
Yeah.
cooking? Why don't you lead us off with number one current event that you got, Brody?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying, Michael Earley being hired as the 21st coach for Texas A&M baseball, man. I mean, exciting time. Seeing the clips of Lucci and Bronny talking about how excited they are just for him as a person and how much he's kind of invested in his 3 years. I know we'll hit on that, but that's definitely the big one, big topic today is him taking on that role, and it's a big opportunity for him, big job, but I think we're both pretty excited about where the program's headed and what's to come.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I'm excited to. We'll touch on that later in the show, like Brody said, but get more in depth on that on our thoughts. But number two for me, today's July 1st. Brody, do you know who receives a large check every July 1st?
We were talking about this before the show, and I didn't it didn't even hit me. I thought the contract was expired, but I think it's Bobby Bonilla Day. I mean, you
Happy
could touch
Bobby
on it more,
Bonilla
but
Day. Yeah, I
this
mean
guy,
it. This guy's agent has to be it has to be one of the greatest deals ever brokered in Major League Baseball, if not of all sports.
until
Um,
Shohei's deal is
true,
that what's
yeah.
going to be the next Bobby Bonilla deal, basically?
I think so, but I think a lot of major league players are going to this model
Yeah,
more recent to maybe ease the money, like the upfront money to the organization, like just ease it a little bit on them and backfill it, and that's what Bobby Bonilla's agent did. And I believe this was brokered in the late '90s, I think.
that's what I was going to say. Given the timing of this when it was brokered, like that guy, that guy deserves a medal. His
I
agent for
know.
sure.
So really the details. So every July 1st of every year, Bobby Bonilla receives a check from the New York Mets for 1.19 million, and that goes until 2035. So he still has 11 more years. Well, I guess 10 more years after this year of 1.19 million every July 1st.
That's insane. Yeah. Next, I think being a Rangers fan, unbelievable season last year. This may not go over well with a lot of listeners, but as being down there in the South and a lot of Astros fans or claim to be Astros fans for the last couple years. But
It's so
Wyatt
true.
Langford hitting for the cycle last night. I mean, this guy going from, I guess we're seeing a lot more now, college guys being a lot more seasoned with the league they play in. But for him to get drafted, unbelievable spring, kind of started off slow, got injured, and now he's back and coming on and having the cycle last night for the first Rangers rookie since '85, hitting for the cycle and needing the home run in his last at bat to get the cycle was pretty special to see. That guy's incredible, and I think he's got a lot of big years to come.
Yeah, that is really special, especially as a rookie. I mean, that guy was competing in the SEC about a year ago, which is really cool to see, especially if you're a Rangers fan. But BG, did you ever hit for the cycle?
Never hit for the cycle. Um, we got to see it my freshman year, your last year. Stouffer hit for the cycle twice, I think, and one being in the
Twice.
regional against Ohio State in an
Yep.
elimination game. That was pretty special to see. No, I checked in at the DoubleTree a lot. If it wasn't going out of the park, it was probably just going to be a double for me. But yeah, never came up with the cycle. That's one. Not that I'm surprised that it didn't happen, but um, just can't add that one to my resume.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Well, before we get started, last what's cooking for the day is Happy Birthday, America. Today's Monday, July 1st. So on Thursday, it is Independence Day, July 4th, 1776. So to my math, America is 248 years old in 2024, which is pretty cool. So,
You get a day
um,
off that day?
yes, yeah, we get a day off.
I I don't know how many beers I'm going to have Thursday, but it'll be a lot. I plan to be tits up in the pool pretty much the entire day.
There you go. Well, hopefully, hopefully people are grilling, grilling out, watching the hot dog eating contest, talking about breakfast clubbing with the boys. What a July 4th. Well, let's get started, man. Welcome again. Welcome to episode one. Thank you so much if you're listening. Episode one is called Your schLOSS, Our Gain. And like I said, Brody and I are super excited to get this thing off the ground. We should have our full episode uploaded to the YouTube channel by Wednesday morning. So please make sure to stop by and watch the full episode. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. So for today, man, we're gonna keep it simple and somewhat straightforward with the week that was in College Station in the Texas A&M baseball team. Just to recap, last Monday, so a week ago today, Texas A&M lost Game 3 of the national championship to Tennessee. On Tuesday, Jim Schlossnagle left Texas A&M after 3 years to become the new head coach at the University of Texas. Together, Brody and I played a total of 8 years at Texas A&M. So we've came up with 8 questions that we're going to throw out to each other and discuss. So before we get into those questions, I just wanted to take a second and really just congratulate the Texas A&M baseball team on their season. I mean, arguably, and I don't even think it's arguable, but I think it's the greatest Texas A&M team that has ever stepped on Olson Field. From what I witnessed, really from afar, ESPN Plus is a great thing, especially when you live kind of halfway across the country. But I witnessed a bunch of really great kids that represented the university really well, and they were really fun and exciting to watch. So for that, I was super proud of really to be a Texas A&M alum, but more than ever, former baseball player. So let's get into it. Question number one, kind of going off of that, Brody, and I want you to address this first, because I feel like the success of the season itself was lost on it was lost on a lot of people with the circus that ensued
Mm-hmm.
as the team arrived back from Omaha. I want to talk about kind of what this season meant to you as a former Texas A&M baseball player.
Yeah, it was a blast to follow. Like you talked about, ESPN Plus being a big component for us, but um, we're usually locked into every game, especially on the weekend when we're playing conference games. But we're locked in each week, so we know what's going on. We kind of have an idea. It was a blast to follow. Like you said, it's the best team in history. There's no way to go around it. But I feel like whether you were a class of 85, '05, 2015, like you feel like you're a part of the run. Like you're not with the team, but you hold a piece of that to where, you're taking losses on the chin or you're celebrating wins or, you probably got buddies that are blowing you up during the slide they had there at the end of the season, kind of wearing you out. But, and also I feel like during the season, we never, especially at the end, we never really felt like we were out of it. The baseball has its momentums. At the end of the season and into the SEC tournament, we struggled, and we didn't know what was going to happen. We knew we were going to host. We knew we were going to have a top 8 seed, but the questions were popping up were if we were going to win our regional, if we were going to win a super. I felt like our program though is one that we expect seasons like that. Fortunately for us, '07 we won a regional. '08 we won a regional. We kind of ran into that buzzsaw, which was Rice that year. But even those two teams, we probably could have competed pretty well in Omaha. Later in Coach Childress's career, where he ran into the TCU buzzsaw, I think he had some of the best teams he had those couple years
Yeah.
that probably could have had success in Omaha. But it was awesome. But to me, I kind of expect our program to be in that situation year after year. I think where they're headed now with NIL, I think there's no reason we shouldn't be, just with the talent we can attract. We saw that with Montgomery coming in. Like that kid was unbelievable. Just for him to even leave Stanford was crazy in itself. But to have him in the year he had, it was awesome to see, man. And I think with the hire and with guys that are still around that program, they are welcoming us more. We'll kind of touch on it throughout the show, but the last 3 years it hasn't been that way from a former player standpoint. But we'll hit on that. But I'm excited, man. This year was I think just scratching the surface of where the program's headed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, man. I mean, for me, if I had to sum it up in one word, it would be proud. The 2024 Texas A&M baseball team just made me proud to be an alumnus of Texas A&M and proud to be a former player. You know, when you really look at the stats that they had as a team, and really it's more or less just the wins, 53 wins, and they started 17-0. Um, they didn't lose one non-conference game. And, I
Yeah.
remember
Yep.
just Coach Childress and how important every midweek game was, to us and how serious you took it. But there was always like a slip up against UTA or Texas State or, you know, Sam Houston. They're good schools, but they're teams that we should beat. In a 1 9 inning game, but it's baseball
Yeah.
and anything can happen. But this team did not lose one non-conference game. They won every midweek game. They won all their non-conference games. It was just really impressive, and obviously won essentially 7 outs short of a national championship. So I mean, we've been in the locker room, BG. A really good locker room to me equals wins, and I'll stand by that. Great teams obviously start with great players. That's not. I mean, I don't think there's a debate there, but in which this team had a bunch of great players this year.
Yeah.
But after that, it's the locker room, and these guys just cut it up and had fun and just seemed like they really enjoyed being around each other. And really, when you get into that postseason run, man, it's just like we've been there. It's a day by day thing, but they went on a run where they didn't lose until the national championship series,
Yeah.
which was really cool. So they. Not to mention there were just some insane moments down the stretch for this team. Granted, like you make a run like this team did, there's going to be great moments that you'll never forget, and honestly, that's what this team gave us. Um, so for how this team represented themselves in the university, made me very proud to be an Aggie.
Yeah, I think when you hit on the midweek and non-conference, I'm not 100% sure, but I think our '07 team, we didn't have the year like they had record-wise, but I want to say we won every midweek game that year. I think we lost a non-conference game, maybe a early tournament or something. Oh, yeah, we lost down in Minute Maid to Arizona State.
Yeah,
That was
thanks
a
for that.
non-conference, but that team was pretty ridiculous though. Um, but the midweek, I think that year we did not lose a game, and that kind of propelled us into getting that host site. I don't know what seed we were that year, but that definitely played a big part. But to go, what was it, 24-0 or 30-0, I guess, at the end of the year of non-conference opponents, it's absurd. And I don't know if that feat will be done anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
duplicating that is nearly impossible, to be honest. I
yeah.
mean, it's just to start 17-0 and 17 non-conference opponents and then run the table on the midweeks that it's really unheard of. But
And a lot of those games they got down in. We had a ton of comeback wins. So, those games mentally, if you get behind, there could be some panic. There could be like, oh shit, we're about to get beat by Tarleton. We just give up a 5 spot. And for them to, recover from that, bounce back, yeah, it was a special season. Leading into the next topic, I guess the elephant in the room or the rat in the room, kind of give me your mindset on when this started to come to light. We'll hit on the release on Monday, I guess Monday morning when they fired David Pierce, but your mindset on when all this started to take place, I guess Monday, obviously Monday night the presser, and then leading into Tuesday's, I guess decision to leave.
yeah, man. I mean, it so my immediate mindset was disappointment. I mean, it was a true kick to the gut, if I'm being honest. Like, and you can give me the whole like, oh, I understand it's a business, and I'm fine with him moving on. Like, that's fine. But like, as a Texas A&M baseball player, and I'm proud. Like, I mean, I'm a proud alumni. I love the school. I just felt so much disrespect with how everything went down, and
Yeah,
that's my opinion of it. Like, no matter what school it was, the way it went down was upsetting to me. And listen, it should go without saying, but I'm talking from a standpoint of being a former Texas A&M baseball player. Like, I just felt like that the Texas A&M baseball program was completely disrespected the way that this went down. So my initial reaction was disappointment. I mean, and it started with the firing of David Price on the morning of Game Three.
Pierce.
You know, or I'm sorry, yeah, David Pierce on the morning of Game Three. Like, whether coincidental or not, like, and we'll get into that shortly, after Texas fired David Pierce, I knew what was next, and I knew the
Yeah,
rumors were going to come shortly after, and they
yeah,
did. So as we sat there and watched Game Three from our living room, like regardless of the outcome, I was fully expecting somebody to ask the question that Richard
yeah,
Zane from Texas asked. And first off, shout out to Richard Zane. Like, for asking the question. I know he's on record saying that he was just doing his job, but that kid is was completely professional about it,
yeah,
and that question I know was appreciated by a lot of people. If you understand sports and you understand, you know, reporters and coaches and players, you know that question was supposed to be asked.
yeah.
Everyone was wondering the same thing, whether schLOSS was leaving A&M or not. And I keep saying this word, but like, my disappointment continued with his response to the question that ultimately everyone wanted to know. And I know schLOSS on record that um, it was 30 minutes after the game, man, but it's just not an excuse. You're a professional. Like, damn, I mean, that could have been handled completely different. And
Yeah.
regardless if he was staying or leaving, the question had to be asked. So as soon as he got defensive, I think at that point I kind of knew what the end result was going to be. And listen, if you follow college athletics, especially baseball, you knew that Jim Saucenagle and Chris Del Conte are very good friends. Like, so as
Yeah.
soon as it came out that David Pierce at the end of the 2024 season was on the hot seat at Texas, you knew that schLOSS was going to be his number one target. So, in summary, I mean, I was just highly disappointed. Honestly, not surprised at one bit that he left, and definitely not surprised with the way everything went down.
Yeah.
Kind of knowing what we know about him personally.
Well, I think after we played them early March, I think, over here and wore them out pretty good. Just kind of, I wouldn't say went through the motions, but we were playing good baseball. We just come off that sweep up at Globe and came over here and just really had a sound game. Braden hit a absolute missile in the first, kind of set the tone. But I think it was right after that, maybe a week after, they had another bad series, and I posted on TexAgs and I said, literally verbatim, I said, I wonder who CDC's first call is going to be. And this was like early March. Like, you knew it was happening. We'll hit more into that kind of the timeline thing, but for me, I think I thought initially was like the players. If we were playing in '07, 10, whatever, and Texas coach gets fired, then whoever it was at the time, we know, I mean, it was Augie, but whoever got fired at the time, and you kind of know, but these kids are getting to see it on social media throughout the day leading up to the damn championship game, like winner take all. And these guys, all they're seeing is, I wonder where he's headed. There's odd talks, this and that. They're seeing that. They can't not put down their phones and throw those distractions out the window. There's just no way.
No,
And for those guys to have to go through that and then play a game, got down, showed nothing but fight, getting back in the game. Really a testament to just the team themselves. Take the coaches out of it, the guys themselves just rallying around each other. But then to have to get on a plane, or I guess stay overnight at the team hotel with their coach there, and their coach clearly with his agenda, for them to get on a plane, come home, to get off the bus, walk up to the field to this loyal fan base that's just open arms for them, and this guy's walking through, giving his fives to the crowd, just knowing that 10 minutes later he's hopping in CDC's Cybertruck and heading over here to Austin for his meeting and signing that deal. I mean, it's when you
Oh,
think of it
he met him at the cemetery first and
yeah,
snuck.
that it's just baffling to me. And then CDC wants to come out and say that Monday he had questions after the game to him to about the deal. It's laughable, really. Lucci talked about how they're best friends, and you're going to release this info the day your best friend is playing for a national championship to build his own resume, whether you're taking him or not, and you release this. Their agenda was 100% to derail anything that we had going of winning a national championship that day, and you won't convince me otherwise. You know, we'll get on. I could go on a rant just about the guy in general, which we'll probably hit on, but mainly for me, it's the players, man. What they went through, and to, like you said, not be celebrated in the way they should coming home, with having to deal with all this external stuff that's going on. I really feel it for them, and hopefully, for those guys that have years left and are planning to come back or whatever it may be. Hopefully, it just fuels everything they've got going for next year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, I mean, you kind of really just touched on it, but the next question was, do you think that Texas firing David Pierce on the morning of Game 3 of the national championship was intentional or just a coincidence?
Yeah, I mean it was intentional. There's no way you're going to convince me otherwise. I mean, we kind of knew Pierce was probably going to be out after the year they had. I didn't think they were going to enter the SEC with that guy in the last couple of years he'd had. He got in Omaha a couple times, but things just weren't vibing right over there. And this league it's a gauntlet no matter who you're playing. So I felt that they were going to change coaches regardless. And once like confirmation was coming out behind the scenes that it was just a matter of time before they did that, and then to do that and announce it that day, it was a no brainer that was an agenda from the get go.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to believe that it wasn't, but I think the best word that I could come up with is that it was calculated. I mean, I think regardless if it was Chris Del Conte or whoever it was, I mean, they knew what they were doing. I mean, the timing was beyond messed up, and to leak that out purposefully, and they can deny all they want, but purposefully on the day of the national championship game where really your arch rivals playing in, it's completely unprofessional.
Yeah,
Our the 2024 team just deserves such a better ending than what they had, and that's not taking anything away from Tennessee. That team was a great team as well, but I really would have liked to have seen number one our team at full health, but
yeah,
the way that it was, it just seemed like kind of everyone else's minds were on something different than the game,
sure,
and that for me was just disappointing.
yeah. Yeah, and then the families that are there too, like team hotel, you come back after the game. It would be hard for me if I was in that position to be going to another school, or especially Texas, like in this situation, but to walk back into that team hotel with parents around, like that you've had your kid convinced to come to this school because I'm here and I've given everything, this is my last job, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's all just straight BS in my opinion. He made that comment about taking the A&M job. It wasn't he took a better job, he just took a different job. So my mindset of him taking a different job from the get go, he wasn't ever bought in. He to me, he probably had an agenda from day one, um, just because of the relationship he had with CDC. Like you knew that at any point when Pierce was out, that was going to happen. So it's unfortunate at the time. I'm glad we're past it now. I think the positivity and the outlook looking forward is, and the vibe in College Station's a lot better. But definitely hate it for those guys over there. And that leads into, there's reports that come out that discussions were talking in late April after we played Georgia That kind of was where coincidentally the slide started to happen, where we, struggled a couple series in a row. I think Bronny said he was hearing it on the select ball circuit before then. Kind of what your thoughts on that, and do you think it was in motion that far in advance?
Man, I mean, so Broniger talked about it, Lucci talked about it, Kendall Rogers talked about it. I mean, these guys aren't hearing those whispers if it's not true. And honestly, it's kind of what you alluded to. I don't know exactly when Del Conte took that AD job. I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken. But honestly, dude, I'm just not surprised. Um, like I said earlier, Chris Del Conte and Saucenego are really good friends. Like, and Saucenego was the one who's made that well known. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying this is the case. However, I would not be surprised if these conversations began a hell of a lot earlier than April. You know what I mean?
That's what I think. Like,
And
I think it was their plan when he took the job at A&M. Pierce was kind of had them winning baseball games, get them to Omaha. Like, you're not going to let that guy go right then, but it's just
no,
kind of a head coach in waiting 90 miles down the road.
yeah, and I don't want to speculate on anything either, but like, why? Obviously, there is some speculation out there and rumors of why he left TCU, but he
Yeah.
left. He, I would not be shocked, and we'll never know the truth of this. But if he left TCU knowing that he was going to end up at Texas one day, the timeline of that was to be seen. But now we kind of see everything unraveling, and that the fact that he wanted to work with his quote unquote best friend, um, you know, just after kind of 3 years. And listen, like I'm not taking anything away from the coach,
Right.
the Jim Saucenego is that man. Um, he can coach. He can coach baseball. I mean, he built TCU really from nothing. I mean, when I was a freshman, sophomore, I remember playing TCU and really just even our. I think your freshman year, we kind of beat the doors off of them. It was
Yeah.
on a Tuesday game. I think we 10-run ruled him, and
Yep.
like he did a lot for that program, and in the amount of time that he was there. Obviously, went to numerous World Series, and but yeah, the coach that he is, he's a great coach. Just completely kind of disagree with who he is as a person.
Yeah, the wins and losses speak for themselves. You can't deny that, and I don't think either of us would ever say he is a bad coach. I think we both go from the stance of him as a person. When Rob was, I guess, or when he resigned, 2021, right there in that summertime after the season, and schLOSS got the job. I talked to Coach Childress and I talked to a bunch of other players and got the same feedback from everybody on who he was. It was kind of basically people told me he was a piece of shit. You know, he could run a program, but as a person, just like no character. Um, I kind of died on that hill for the 3 years on the forums. Like, everybody's pumped about, and I love winning, trust me. But I was like, man, I'm not in on this guy at all. And I was going to die on that hill. Hated being right, but at the same time, like, I was standing by that. And on the first weekend we had our alumni weekend, his first alumni weekend. It was before the season started in 2022, like the week before, and the weather was shit. It was cold, and you were supposed to go play golf out of Traditions, and we ended up going over to Big Shots and then having dinner at Traditions, and all the coaches came over. I think he came in there and shook our hand and introduced himself for like 2 minutes and was gone. And just I don't know, just the feedback and the vibe around the entire team and former players then it just threw you off. I don't know if it's a socially awkward deal or just kind of like not being in that setting. I don't know, but from my stance, the alumni side of things was handled poorly from the get go. And I had talked to Hutch and they had changed it to every other year moving forward. I would assume that that'll probably change, with the new regime now. But you know how guys are, man. That's a big part of the program, and Coach Childress always made it a big deal. do an alumni weekend in non-baseball season. That way, it's everybody comes in, even a away football game, to where it's let's all get in and celebrate the alumni. And I think it'll get back to that to a sense. But that was one example, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way from the get go. Um, but yeah, man, it's unfortunate at this stage, but I think, like I said before, I think we're going to be a lot better off moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, just to really touch on that, the and for working, not just playing for Coach Childress, but for working with him for 2 years, like he put a lot into the alumni and the former
Yeah,
players. Like that was important to him, and having those relationships and bringing
and he still
everyone
does.
back. Yeah, well, he still does, in the sense that he may not even know, but like how many group chats are we in
Yeah,
with former players and former teammates of ours? Like we
yeah,
have a 2007 group chat. Hell, I just was in Omaha on Saturday, ran into 6 different teammates, and now we're all in a group chat together. And it's just like that's what A&M is to us.
yeah.
It's special because like when you get to go back and see everyone, and it's a first class, that's what Coach Childress made it for us. It was first class weekend, golf, food, friends, drinks, whatever have
Alumni
you.
game, going
Yeah.
out there and tearing hammies together. Yeah,
That's right. So I mean, it just he did a lot, not just for that program, Coach Childress. I'm saying, obviously won over 600 games, but he did a lot for us as men and friends, really, for life. So look
yeah.
at
You
us. I mean, we're
posted it. You
sitting.
posted on Twitter the other day. Was that, or you reposted it? That comment from Watson. He was talking about, and he does this with I don't countless amount of players about his. He'll have the reminder of your birthday. You may not talk to him for half a year, and then he'll buzz you at 5 o'clock in the morning, telling you to wake the hell up. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. And it goes a long way of just having that text.
Yeah,
That forever friendship with the guy. And yeah, he's a big piece of our lives, and still is, and probably will be for a long time.
no doubt, no doubt about it. Well, kind of moving on, transitioning here. BG, I don't know how you want to address this, but as far as like, we've seen reports really just as recent as this morning about guys in the portal and guys that are hopping out of, or taking their names out of the portal and returning to A&M. It looked like they had got some great news this morning with Hayden Schott.
Yep.
I guess got his waiver from the NCAA, and is going to utilize his last year, COVID year at A&M, which is awesome because that guy's kind of seems like would be a really fun teammate to have. But guys like that, but you still have guys like Grahovic, Lavalette, Sorrell, Caden Wilson, I think
Yeah.
Kent. I don't know if I'm missing anybody big name wise. The
Coffer.
catcher, yeah, Max Coffer,
Yeah.
yeah, like what? I mean, how are you approaching that with those guys, and maybe what would you say to those guys that are currently in the portal?
For me, it would be hard to. I get entering the portal and testing your waters, and seeing what people throw at you, because people are. I can't imagine the schools that have blown certain guys up and are just like, here's everything. Um, but I think just when you play a season, or in Jace's situation, he's played 2 seasons at A&M, like it's hard to not want to be back for a program like that, a fan base like that. Um, throw NIL out the window. Like we're going to be able to take care of guys. I don't think they know they're making their decision based off of that. I think Mike being back will do pretty much wonders for everybody, if not majority of those guys. But as far as like putting in the work and the blood and the sweat for A&M baseball, and then playing a season and having it turn out the way they did, I just don't see in as a person being able to leave that and go do something else. Like, you know, Jace has ties to LSU or something of that nature, and people have kind of tried to throw that out there. But I think even after he made his change and came to A&M, kind of followed Nolan to A&M at the time. I think after spending 2 years there, the guy's fully bought in. I think he's what, 6, 7 home runs away from possibly having
Yeah,
a
I think 7.
statue. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like being the home run leader. We saw Caglione get that over the weekend. And Laporta sitting in the stands. That stuff's like that's big time for somebody at A&M that's played ball there. So, going down the record books, I think we've seen pretty vocally Grohovic's parents on Twitter and stuff about their love infatuation for Mike and um, especially being a kid from California, that's definitely tough to commit to coming all the way to school, with us and then having this happen and then hopping in the portal. I just feel like, bleeding for maroon and white for a year, it's hard to want to have a change. I feel like just that fan base and the dedication you get from everybody there that you'd be coming back to that. And I think hiring Mike will solidify that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just the NIL thing changes everything, but it's not. I mean, Texas A&M is up there with about everybody as far as in
Yeah.
terms of NIL money. I don't know the full details of it, but they're competitive, So I mean, I can't imagine them. I just can't imagine, like, hypothetically, if you're Jace and LSU's offering you $750,000, and Texas A&M offers you 500,000. I don't even know this to be true, but I'm just
Yeah.
using it as an example. It's a $250,000. You're 20 years old, but is it really, like, are you really going to LSU just because of that amount of money? Like, it's a tough question to ask, but
Yeah.
and and I don't want to take anything away from Jace either, because we know pretty much it doesn't really matter what kind of year he has. That kid's still going to be a first rounder. I mean,
For
he's
sure.
still going to make millions and millions of dollars. So I don't know. It's just like it's a weird question to ask, but it's also unrelatable to us because we we didn't the NIL wasn't a thing 15 years ago. It's
I mean,
just
I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine the conversations they're having or their NIL agent or how it works with that. But I can't imagine the conversations they're having in those type of discussions. But yeah, in his situation, you would you would hope that that type of money and difference in money, if it is that, whatever it is, isn't the deciding factor. I think the guy's pretty beloved by the fan base, and it will be welcomed back with open arms if they make that decision. In this coaching change they kind of went through, you kind of went through it. I guess that would have been '05. Um,
2005.
yeah, when Johnson was out and Rob was in, kind of give your feedback on how that went down, kind of emotions as a player, what's going to happen, what are you thinking at that time? Obviously, times are different, but kind of that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, great question. Just in terms of a player, that was crazy times, man. Like, everything I ever knew really was Texas A&M. It's where I grew up. Obviously, I was recruited by a lot of schools. My two decisions came down to Texas A&M and Arizona, with Mark Wazakowski, who's now the head coach at Oregon. But um, listen, I'll never forget the way that season ended for us. Um, we unfortunately didn't make the Big 12 tournament that year, and we were in late May in at Dish Falk Field against Texas. It's probably 125 degrees on that AstroTurf. We didn't play well. It's a Sunday game. Ultimately, had nothing to play for. It was going to be our last game of the season, regardless. So we're down like 9-1 in the bottom of the seventh, and like the SEC did over the last few years, the Big 12 had the same 10-run rule on any travel day. So bottom seven, Texas gets their first two runners on base. Aggie bunts, literally sack bunts up 8 runs. to get the runners to second and third. We proceed to walk the next guy to get it to bases loaded. The next guy walks, run scores to make it 10-1, and the very first pitch of the next batter after the walk was a wild pitch. So we got walked off on a wild pitch for a 10-run rule to end our season, and we got on that bus. I mean, everyone was disappointed. I believe we actually won the first game of that series, so we lost 2 out of 3 to Texas to end our 2005 season, and we get back to Olson Field, and you got to remember, like back then, it didn't look like it did today. Like all you had was the one entrance in and out of the locker room. There wasn't like a coach's office to go into or anything. So we pulled up, and I just thought it was weird because Bill Byrne was kind of pacing around outside of our locker room. He was wearing cargo shorts and a a Hawaiian shirt, and he had flip flops on. I mean, like, I guess I was a little naive at that time, like end of the season, AD's going to meet with Coach Johnson. Well, he met with him and he fired him and fired that entire staff. And we found out shortly after that. But the emotion of that day is something I'll never forget. And the feeling of uncertainty it's not a good one. It's not, you don't know who's coming in, who's going to be your next head coach. Is he going to like me? Am I going to have to transfer? Like nobody knew what was next. And if you remember, and you were in high school at this point, but there wasn't a coach name for a while. Like we didn't make the Big 12 tournament. And remember, you play the Big 12 tournament, then there's the week of the regional, then there's a super regional, and then there's Omaha. Well, the guy they ended up hiring is Rob Childress, right? So we didn't find that out because Nebraska went to the College World Series that year
Mm-hmm.
in '05, and they played deep. And so it wasn't until about this time in 2005, sometime at the end of June, that Coach Childress was named as the new head coach of A&M. And at that point, it was like, you know, who's Rob Childress? And the funny thing is that got answered really quickly. I'll never forget. I was on my way. I was playing for the Weatherford Wranglers in the Texas Collegiate League that summer. And I was driving to the field one afternoon, and my phone rings, and it was Rob Childress. And he called me and just kind of talked to me, got to know me a little bit. And for me, I don't know if transferring was ever in the cards for me. It's not that I ever really thought about it. Times were a lot different. Like the portal wasn't the way it is, and there wasn't NIL money, so you just kind of sat and waited. But you found out really quick, like who Texas A&M hired and Rob Childress, and really what came to be with me and his relationship was really something that I'm forever grateful for. And I thought Bill Byrne did an amazing job, like finding that hire, and like kind of a lot like Michael Earley. Coach Childress was a first-time head coach. He had never been a head coach before in Division One, and um, he did a great job, man. I mean, the guy in my book's a Hall of Famer. He won over like 620 games at Texas A&M, and went to 2 World Series. I know that didn't go the way we wanted. We played in a couple more super regionals. If the ball bounces, just
Right.
one other way, like things could be a lot different for him. But he's a great coach. He's a great mentor. He's a really good close friend of mine, and he he was the reason why I was an All-American. He was the reason why I was drafted in the 7th round by the San Francisco Giants, and he's ultimately the reason why I'm coaching still in baseball today. I mean, I love that
Yeah,
man, and he's done a lot for me and my family.
no doubt. Yeah, I mean, that's I can't imagine going through that. I was kind of spoiled, I guess, at that time, getting in a couple years after Coach Childress got there, and having the success we had. So you kind of felt like nothing was going to happen. Your coach was never leaving, and he was there 16 years. So
Yeah.
that was awesome. Hopefully, we kind of get that vibe here with Mike. And he's got a young family, and I can't imagine like a young coach just uprooting and doing things like that. And he's got 3 kids, I think, that are super young. So I know they love the city and hope that he's there for a long time. But I mean, I guess just leading into the last part is, talk about the hire. I mean, I played against Michael a little bit in pro ball. You and I talked about him before he even interviewed for the job. We talked about just kind of who he is. You've met him. You can kind of speak to that. But, Colligan's talked about him. They played together with the White Sox and, spoke highly of him. So I've met him once, at the alumni deal, but I'm super pumped to get back over there and meet him and talk with him more than just an introduction, and my take on it is we talk about Coach Childress' first time at A&M, O'Sullivan, O'Connor, Vitello, these guys were first time head coaches at their said school they are now, and you know Vitello's early on, but he's already got that program where he wants it to be. So it I guess you could say the risk higher, but at the same time in 2024 the roster retention was massive. Going into next year, if you've got to unload and turn over the roster, there's no telling if this takes 2 or 3 or 4 years to get back on track to where it was. Mike coming in, the guy knows baseball. He's going to have a good staff. Um, Getting that roster retained is massive for the program and what we're planning to do next year.
Yeah, man. I mean, let me start by just going over like Michael Early's like timeline from this past week. I mean,
Yeah,
Monday, so a week ago today, he's coaching in the national championship game in Omaha against Tennessee.
hmm
Tuesday, he finds out, whether willing or not, that he's going to Texas as one of the assistants with
Billy
schLOSS.
Billy said he was talking to Michael in the hotel lobby after the game until 1 a.m. about the Ivy League Player of the Year coming in as a transfer. Like he was juiced
Wow.
up about this kid coming in. And yeah, to your point, yeah, keep going. But I mean, that's the timeline. Thinking there's no, I don't know if he did or not, but he's bought in. He's talking about next year
Yeah,
already and
sure.
what we're bringing in. So keep
Yep.
going. Sorry.
No, I mean, yeah, so Tuesday finds out he's going to Texas as one of the assistants. I mean, Wednesday, he is present at the head coach's introductory press conference in Austin. Thursday or Friday, I don't know the exact timeline of it. He interviews for the Texas A&M head coaching job, and tons of former players, express their support and
Yeah.
get behind him, And then yesterday, Sunday morning, he's announced as Texas A&M baseball's new head coach. Man, at 36 years old, like what a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, this man, like like you alluded to, I got a chance to meet Mike in 2022. It was right after they beat Louisville in the Super Regional to go to Omaha. So it was in that time frame where they had a practice that morning, and I went out to Olson, got to see Hutch, and really met everybody on that staff that day.
Yeah.
Yeski was the pitching guy, obviously, at that time, but spent some time with Yeski and spent some time with Michael Earley for the most part. And just let me say this, man. Like, I absolutely love the hire. He's a terrific baseball mind. He's young. He's energetic. Relating to players nowadays, like it matters a lot. Like coaching these young kids that are 18 to 21, 22 years old, like that matters. I'm
And
not
he looks
saying you can't.
sweet in those sunglasses he wears, man.
He
That guy's
does.
got
He does.
some swag. I know Hutch has always had swag, but Mike's got the different shade tints with different uniforms. He's up there with the swag.
Hutch, your swag is rivaled. Your swag is rivaled. But no, obviously, it's become well known over the course of the last few days that former players and current players respect and love playing for him. So, that being said, I think the short term for Texas A&M is really good. And like what matters about what matters? It's the short term, right? Like next year is the most important year for Texas A&M baseball. It's not
Yeah,
2028.
for sure.
Next year is the biggest year. So just like you said, retaining this roster is the biggest thing. So you don't hire someone for the job they're going to do 5 years from now. You hire them for the job they're going to do right now. And Michael Earley is going to do a great job for Texas A&M baseball right now. And it just, I'll get into like all that being said, like the naysayers are going to say, obviously it's his first time as a head coach. Well, I get it. Like Rob Childress, like we said, first time head coach. Tony Vitello, like you said, first-time head coach. Kevin O'Sullivan, first-time head coach at Florida. Brian O'Connor was a first-time head coach at Virginia. Look at Mike Elko. Like Mike Elko, now granted, he was a first-time head coach when he went to Duke, but
Yeah,
like you also heard stuff like, oh, Elko's only really been a head coach for 2 years. Well, at what point does it give? Like
yeah,
he's had experience. Elko's done a great job, and I think will do a great job for Texas A&M football. But like Michael Earley is a home run hire for Texas A&M. Now, granted, it's not the sexy name, but he's gonna do a great job for Texas A&M. And I really do think that Michael Earley will be here for a long time and win a lot of games for Texas A&M. Not just because he's a great coach, but he's a great person and he
yep,
treats people the right way. So for
yep,
that, I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited for Texas A&M baseball and the roster. And no, let me shout out Trev Alberts because a lot of athletic directors will seek thoughts and opinions of players. A lot of ads won't take into those in account, and it seems like they took Trev Alberts took their opinions, heard all the voices of current and former players. Now, granted, Michael Earley didn't get the job solely based on that. He got the
yeah,
job because it sounded like reports already walked into that room with Trev Alberts and General Walsh, I believe his name is, and knocked his interview out of the park.
yeah.
And he did that because he is a great baseball guy and a great leader. So, congrats to Coach Early. Super excited about Texas A&M baseball's future, and really look forward to watching them come 2025.
No doubt, no doubt. Real excited. Yeah, man. I think that pretty much hits it for today. You got anything to close with? I think I'm pretty much set.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a wrap for the first episode of Breakfast Clubbing with the Boys. You know what? Like Brody and I said, if you're still listening, first off, thank you very much. As we stated earlier, we should have the full episode up on our YouTube channel by Wednesday morning. We're going to try to edit this up a little bit. Like it was our first time both doing something like this, so we greatly appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. And go to our Twitter X account pages, whatever you call it these days. I'm going to always call it Twitter. So go to our Twitter accounts. Um, Give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow us on Twitter. Mine is my first initial K and my last name Nicholson 18. And Brody is Brody Green. That's Brody. He spells it differently for some reason. Green, Greene, and the number 4. So Brody Green 4. So thanks again, everyone. Really appreciate y'all tuning in, and we're hoping to do this sometime soon.
Yes, sir. Big fly.
Big fly.